The Nevada wind screamed across the alkali flats as Zachariah "Zach" Ironwood dragged himself through the sagebrush, his right arm severed at the shoulder and his left hand crushed beyond use from the stamp mill they'd forced him into. At 56, the former territorial mining assayer had tested thousands of ore samples, prevented countless fraudulent claims through precise analysis, and spent 28 years bringing scientific accuracy to the chaotic world of frontier mining. But he'd never expected to be mutilated and left for dead by his own assay office supervisor, betrayed for the crime of refusing to falsify silver content reports that would defraud investors in worthless mining claims. "You're too honest for modern assaying, Ironwood," Supervisor Blackwood had sneered as his hired thugs fed Zach's arms into the crushing machinery. "This territory's got no use for assayers who can't tell the difference between ore analysis and investor relations." The relations had been Blackwood's scheme to inflate silver content in worthless claims, selling shares to Eastern investors based on fraudulent assay reports, while the real silver was secretly extracted and sold separately. When Zach discovered the conspiracy and refused to sign the false certificates, Blackwood had decided that a tragic mill accident would solve his problem permanently. "Should have stuck to testing ore instead of testing my patients," Blackwood had laughed as the stamp mill pulverized bone and sinew. "Maybe the coyotes will appreciate your scientific precision." For 3 days, Zach had crawled through the unforgiving landscape, surviving on dew collected on sagebrush leaves and sheer determination. Buzzards circled overhead, patient predators, waiting for him to succumb to his injuries. Nights brought bone-chilling cold that numbed his wounds temporarily, but left him shivering uncontrollably until dawn. Now Zach crawled through the greasewood and rabbit brush, his severed arm leaving a trail of blood that attracted scavengers, his remaining hand too damaged to grip anything. In the distance, he spotted buildings beside a natural hot spring, the first sign of civilization he'd encountered since dragging himself away from Blackwood's torture chamber. The assay office sat in a protected canyon, surrounded by well-organized testing equipment and carefully labeled ore samples that spoke of someone who understood both mineral analysis and scientific methodology. Zach collapsed at the wooden steps, his blood staining the planks that bore the precise markings of expert craftsmanship. The door opened to reveal a woman in her early 50s, her red hair streaked with silver and pulled back in a practical style, her gray eyes holding the steady competence of someone who'd learned to read the truth in rock and metal through years of careful analysis. She wore simple work clothes and moved with the methodical precision of someone accustomed to handling both delicate instruments and dangerous chemicals. "Sweet Mary and Joseph," she breathed, taking in Zach's condition. "What happened to you?" "Assay supervisor," Zach gasped through gritted teeth. "My own supervisor tried to kill me." The woman, he'd later learn her name was Bridget "Birdie" O'Sullivan, helped him toward her office with surprising strength. Her assay operation was immaculately organized and equipped with the latest testing apparatus that demonstrated genuine commitment to scientific accuracy, a stark contrast to the fraudulent operations that passed for mineral analysis in most frontier territories. "Your own supervisor did this to your arms?" she asked, examining the horrific wounds with hands that moved with gentle expertise. "Caught him, falsifying silver reports. Didn't appreciate my interference." Birdie's expression darkened with recognition. She'd seen this kind of systematic fraud before, the calculated deception of men who used scientific positions to justify their theft from trusting investors. "Thieves," she muttered. "They'd steal the hope from a widow's purse if it meant another dollar in their pockets." For 4 months, Zach drifted between consciousness and fever, while Birdie tended his wounds with a mixture of frontier medicine and chemical knowledge she'd gained from years of working with dangerous substances. She couldn't restore his arms, too much had been destroyed, but she managed to save his life and help him adapt to working with prosthetic devices she crafted from laboratory equipment. The infection that set in nearly claimed his life, but Birdie fought it with the same determination she brought to all challenges. During his lucid moments, Zach observed her operation with professional interest. Her methods were precise, her documentation meticulous, She approached each assay with scientific rigor that matched his own standards, a rarity in the frontier territories where quick profits often trumped accuracy. When Zach finally sat up clear-headed, he found Bertie conducting what appeared to be a comprehensive ore analysis, testing samples with the kind of systematic approach that had once been his specialty. Her office was more than just an assay operation. It was a scientific laboratory that provided honest mineral analysis to protect both miners and investors. "You know assay science," he observed, watching her precise chemical procedures and careful documentation. "I know enough to tell the truth about what's in the rock," Bertie replied, organizing her test results with professional care. "Out here, a false assay can destroy lives, and I sleep better knowing my reports are honest." Her story emerged slowly over the following weeks as Zach regained his strength. Bertie was the daughter of Irish miners who taught her the practical aspects of ore identification and chemical testing from childhood. While other girls learned needlework, she had learned to distinguish pyrite from real gold, to test for silver content using nitric acid, to recognize the telltale signs of copper and zinc in complex ores. She'd married an American mining engineer who'd recognized her talent and encouraged her scientific education, teaching her advanced chemistry and metallurgy. Together, they'd established a reputation for honest, accurate assays that miners and investors alike could trust. But her husband had been killed in a deliberately caused cave-in when he'd tried to expose systematic assay fraud, leaving her to run the operation with nothing but her knowledge and her determination to prove that honest analysis was more valuable than fraudulent profits. "Men think a woman can't understand chemistry," she explained, adjusting her testing apparatus with expert precision. "They learn different, or they learn to get their assays done somewhere else." Zach told her about Blackwood's conspiracy, the inflated silver reports. The years of honest analysis repaid with mutilation. Bertie listened without judgment, occasionally nodding as if she'd suspected such systematic fraud existed. "This Supervisor Blackwood thinks investor money is just there for the taking?" she asked. "He thinks I'm a fool for believing in scientific accuracy, too rigid to understand that assaying is about telling investors what they want to hear, not what the ore actually contains." "Maybe he's right about one thing," Bertie said, her tone thoughtful. "Maybe the old way of mineral analysis is finished. Question is, what are you going to test to replace it?" The question hung in the air between them, a challenge and an invitation. Zach considered it carefully, understanding its significance. She wasn't asking about chemical procedures or testing protocols. She was asking about purpose, about what came next for a man who'd lost everything except his knowledge and his integrity. "I still know the science," he said finally. "Still know how to read the truth in rock. If there's a place for honest assaying, I'd like to be part of it." Bertie's smile was warm and genuine. "I believe there is. Not everyone wants to be lied to, even out here." Their partnership began when a series of mining investment scandals threatened to destroy confidence in the entire territorial silver industry, with Eastern investors refusing to fund Nevada claims that had become synonymous with fraud and deception. Rumors of widespread assay fraud had reached New York and Boston, causing investment capital to dry up almost overnight. Zach's knowledge of advanced chemistry, combined with Bertie's understanding of practical mining and investor relations, allowed them to establish new testing protocols that restored trust in Nevada silver. They developed a certification process that guaranteed the accuracy of their assays, backed by their professional reputations and rigorous documentation. Word spread quickly through the mining communities. Honest miners, desperate for investment capital, brought their samples to Copper Creek Station for testing. Investors, burned by fraudulent claims, began to recognize the value of certificates bearing the signatures of O'Sullivan and Ironwood. "You still know your trade," Bertie observed as they watched honest mining operations receive proper funding for the first time in years. "No chemical analysis, no mineral identification, know how to read the truth when ore samples lie," Zach replied, manipulating testing equipment with his prosthetic devices with practiced skill. "Out here, that's still worth something." Their reputation grew steadily. Miners who'd been cheated by fraudulent assayers brought their samples to Copper Creek Station, knowing they'd receive honest evaluations. Investors who'd lost fortunes to mining scams began to trust certificates bearing the O'Sullivan Ironwood stamp. Even territorial officials, concerned about the collapse of mining investment, recognized the value of their work. Word spread through the Nevada Territory about the office at Copper Creek Station, where Bertie O'Sullivan and the armless Assayer could solve problems that had stumped territorial mining authorities for years. They developed a reputation for integrity that extended from the Sierra Nevada to the Wasatch Range. Their partnership deepened as they worked side by side. Zach found himself admiring not just Bertie's scientific knowledge, but her resilience, her quiet strength, her unwavering commitment to truth. For her part, Bertie appreciated Zach's expertise, his patience in teaching her advanced chemical techniques, and his refusal to be defined by his injuries. More importantly, they found in each other something they'd both thought lost: professional companionship, shared purpose, and the deep love that comes from protecting honest investors and hard-working miners together against those who would defraud them both. The confrontation with Supervisor Blackwood came 2 years later. He arrived with territorial officials and forged documents, claiming Zach was mentally incompetent due to his injuries and needed to be placed under Blackwood's care as his former supervisor. The official papers looked legitimate at first glance, stamped with territorial seals and signed by a judge known for his susceptibility to bribes. "There's the old stump arms," Blackwood announced, pointing at his former assayer with mock concern. "Living in sin with some Irish lab woman, probably can't even hold a test tube anymore." Zach emerged from the assay office, no longer the broken man Blackwood had tortured and abandoned. Hard work and purpose had strengthened his body, while finding his true calling had restored his confidence. His arms were gone forever, but his mind was sharp and his voice carried the authority of genuine expertise. "Blackwood," he said calmly, "you're looking prosperous. The fraud business treating you well?" "Don't get smart with me, Ironwood. I'm here on official territorial business." "Official?" Bertie stepped out beside Zach, a rifle cradled in her arms. "Funny thing about that, I sent some samples to friends in San Francisco and New York. Seems the federal government's been investigating mining investment fraud." Blackwood's confidence wavered as he realized they'd been building a case against him for months. Bertie's connections throughout the mining community had provided access to fraudulent assay reports and witness testimony that painted a clear picture of systematic investor deception and ore analysis falsification. "This is a setup," Blackwood sputtered, his hand moving toward his gun. "No," came a new voice from the canyon rim. "This is justice." A federal marshal rode down into the valley, flanked by territorial investigators and several angry investors who discovered Blackwood's plan to use their money to fund his systematic mining fraud scheme. The confrontation ended without violence. Faced with overwhelming evidence and expert testimony, Blackwood's empire of assay fraud collapsed completely. His conspiracy had reached far beyond the original silver reports, involving systematic falsification of mineral analyses across multiple territories that had defrauded thousands of investors and destroyed countless mining operations. He died in federal prison 18 months later, still claiming he'd only been trying to develop Nevada's mineral resources. "Feel better?" Bertie asked as they watched the federal party disappear over the canyon rim. "Feel precise," Zach replied, flexing his prosthetic devices. "For the first time since they destroyed me, I feel like I'm truly measuring what matters." Their partnership deepened into something more profound than business or convenience. They established a mineral analysis service that served the entire territory, providing honest assay work and investment protection to anyone who needed it, regardless of their ability to pay premium fees. They trained apprentices in proper testing methods, creating a new generation of assayers committed to scientific accuracy rather than fraudulent profits. Their laboratory became a center for innovation, developing new techniques for mineral identification and chemical analysis that set standards across the Western territories. "We make quite a team," Bertie observed one evening as they sat by the hot spring, watching the sunset paint the Nevada sky in brilliant purples and golds. We make truth, Zach corrected, taking her chemical-stained hand with his prosthetic hook. The kind that's built on accuracy rather than avarice, on science rather than swindling. At 58, Zachariah Ironwood was no longer the broken-down assayer who'd been mutilated and left for dead by a fraudulent supervisor. He was a guardian of scientific integrity, a protector of honest investment, and living proof that expertise mattered more than physical completeness. The desert that had nearly claimed his life had instead given him purpose, partnership, and the chance to use his knowledge for something greater than mere mineral testing. His prosthetic devices, constantly improved by Birdie's ingenuity, allowed him to perform laboratory work with remarkable precision. And Bridget O'Sullivan had found something she'd thought impossible: not just love, but professional partnership with someone who saw her scientific knowledge as genuine expertise rather than feminine dabbling, who understood that the strongest analyses are built on respect for both the truth and the people who depend on it. Together, they'd carved out their own piece of the American dream in the stark beauty of Nevada's high desert, proving that sometimes the people society discards become the ones who provide the most accurate measurements. Their office became a landmark on the frontier, Copper Creek Station Assay, where scientific integrity and honest analysis went hand in hand. The ore wagons still rolled past their canyon, carrying silver and dreams across the expanding West. But now they carried something else as well: the knowledge that there were still places where truth mattered more than profit, where severed arms couldn't sever an unbreakable commitment to accuracy, and where two people who'd been written off by the world proved that the most valuable ore is that which is honestly assayed, properly reported, and fairly traded by those who understand that real wealth comes not from deception, but from the precise application of scientific knowledge, the careful protection of investor trust, and the unwavering belief that in America, every claim deserves honest analysis, every investor deserves truthful reports, and every miner deserves the dignity that comes from working ground that contains exactly what the assay certificate says it contains. No more, no less, but always the truth.